What do tarot cards tell Ukrainians? A few days ago, after the service, a woman asked me an interesting question. Can I help my husband by reading tarot cards? He is a military man, an officer, and I would like to warn him of danger, point out unfavorable days so that he takes care of himself and his subordinate soldiers. And vice versa, so that on days that are favorable tactically at the front he is active. Is it possible, in principle, to do this? A parishioner of the church asked me. And I remembered that a few months before this conversation, a girl, the daughter of a Ukrainian member of parliament, had approached me. I won't mention her name. For several weeks in her house, some force, as she testified, turned on and off the lights, slammed the yard and windows. There was even a case when the door was suddenly locked from the inside. The children were sleeping in the house, and she went outside to walk the dog. In shock and panic, the girl asked me, through her friends in the periphery, to come and bless her house immediately. And this is a smart, creative and rational girl who used to consider herself an atheist. But she had one peculiarity. She used to read tarot cards at home. And she was very attached to it. And I connected these two things together. The demonic activity in the house and the tarot cards. And I advised her to leave this demonic business and burn the cards. So is it possible to read tarot cards for yourself or others to ward off danger from loved ones? No, it isn't. Reading tarot cards for yourself or others is not fundamentally different. The same cards, the same arbitrary methods of interpreting pictures. The richer the imagination, the more cunning the result. The only difference is that the degree of emotional involvement in the process is higher when you read to yourself than when you read to someone else. The question is different. Who does a person trust with their fate? The pictures that fall out in a random sequence? Or the person behind these drawings who inspires the tarot reader with certain interpretations? The first is the most naive and ridiculous. And the second, you will agree, is dangerous. After all, it is clear that this is not God, not angels, not saints. This means other forces that definitely do not wish people well, but rather seek to subjugate them, make them controllable, and ultimately destroy them and bring them to hell. Or bring about premature death. Cards will not help you to know the future. They will not tell you what to do. Because the future is known only to God. I am God. And there is no other God. And there is no one like me. I tell from the beginning what will happen in the end. And from ancient times, things that have not happened, God has spoken through the mouth of the prophet Isaiah. Why doesn't God reveal the future to people? In fact, he often does. The entire history of the Old Testament is full of prophecies and predictions that the Lord communicated through the prophets. The mission and ministry of the prophets was to announce God's will to people. In prayer to God, in addressing the holy elders, people learned only what was useful and necessary for the salvation of their souls. The Bible sternly warns against the practice of divination, one of the forms of which is considered to be tarot card reading. In the Bible, there is a belief that demons can influence and direct tarot card readings. In the New Testament, there are instances where Jesus Christ casts out demons from those who were possessed or influenced by demons. This indicates the spiritual forces behind such practices. The Bible warns believers to be careful not to fall into the darkness of divination and other occult practices. It calls for seeking guidance and wisdom only from God, only from the Church. And it warns against seeking understanding through supernatural means, which includes the use of tarot cards. Believers are called to exercise caution, avoid ties to divination, and seek guidance from God, rather than turn to supernatural practices that can lead them away from the light of God's truth, from Christ, and away from salvation. The origin of tarot cards can be traced back to Italy in the 15th century. At first, they were just playing cards used for games. However, later people began to interpret deeper meanings and allegedly hidden knowledge in the cards. This led to the evolution of tarot cards from a simple playing cards into a powerful tool for divination and communication with the dark forces of evil. So what do tarot cards tell Ukrainians? And what I answer to the woman who came to me asking if she could read tarot cards, if she could help her husband, a military officer, by doing so. So, to engage in a blasphemous activity is to affirm God's grace from yourself. And not only from ourselves, but from those we love, from our defenders. After all, in every Ukrainian family, someone at the front is in danger every minute. A woman who reads tarot cards, and her husband is at war, because he needs prayerful intercession for him before the Lord. After all, responsibility before God is shared by men and women. She does not understand that by opposing God, by defiling herself with magic, she mysteriously and sacredly opens her husband to demons, enemies, bullets, and the angel of death. So think about it, dear Ukrainians, and listen soberly to all the world's religions, to their pastors, and to their believers. Who would speak highly of tarot card reading? Wouldn't they warn us against it? Wouldn't they emphasize that prayer to God and the tarot are incompatible? Amen.